This is Moon Mulligan, and this is Let's Find Out with Diego.
Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia. It's another episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, set out on a thrilling adventure with a fearless explorer of the universe, musician, and award-winning author from Northern Virginia, who brought us the gripping book Tenebris, The Unholy Darkness. This intrepid seeker of truth fearlessly propels himself into action-packed adventures, fantastical realms, to mesmerize audiences with his captivating stories. Join him as he makes a triumphant return to Let's Find Out, sharing his daring personal paranormal encounters and tales that will spark wonder and curiosity in all who dare to follow his trailblazing adventures into the mysterious unknown. All this plus more. Please welcome back to Let's Find Out our very good friend, author J.A. Barrios. My friend, welcome back to our show. I've been looking forward to having this conversation for a while now.
Yeah, hey, it's great to be back. Thank you so much.
We had a great time. The last time I saw you, it was in Berryville, Virginia.
That was back in April.
Back in April, the weather was a little bit better and not as hot. It was a nice and cool day. And then we set on our own little adventure somewhere, a nice little Chinese restaurant. It was you, me, and also another Northern Virginia author, Michael Thompson, was there with us, and also our loved ones went. And
Right.
then we started having conversations. We had a sidebar, and you said, "Hey, next time I'm on the show," I did not mention though that I've had my own paranormal experiences, and you have some great stories from your mom's side of the family. With I wouldn't consider it a cryptid, but we're going to save that for later. But before we begin that part of our conversation, my friend, we talked about your book Tenebris, and at that point, it was fairly new, I believe. So how's it been going so far?
Oh yeah, it's been doing well. It's been doing pretty well, and I've been heavily hankering down, working on writing the sequel. Getting close to finishing that off. It's scheduled to release next summer for 2025. Don't have the official release date yet, but it'll definitely be earlier in the summer. So I'm very excited. Been just really loving the direction the new book has taken me. I guess it's kind of at the point it's writing itself, so to speak. It's very exciting.
Yeah, the supernatural force of storytelling coming from you, my friend. Now, for the listeners, let's find out who might have missed that episode, and I really encourage them to go back into the time machine and click the play button to play that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Tenebris, the Unholy Darkness. Let's go back and let's talk about that book really quick.
All right.
What's it about? Because I know it's got some pretty awesome sci-fi feel to it.
Oh yeah. So So the overarching story is it's like a twist to the story of Genesis. More so kind of telling an origin of the world that we now refer to as hell and how it became a place of torment, place of misery. And so the story follows a group of beings called the Serpenoids, which are kind of like snake-like humanoid beings that are the first dwellers of Earth in a time before the creation of the sun. But once the first dawn rises, forces these creatures to hide in the shadows, and they look to their deity, Lord Thandrua, who envisions a promised land, a sanctuary, a new world that is built specifically for their needs, a world that is similar to Earth at the time, where it's hot primordial, lava, rivers of lava, desertly lands, and they go on this long pilgrimage to to this portal that takes them to this other world, and the story takes from there as they discover the lands, realize that they're not alone there, and are forced to come with the difficult decisions of what do you do when you're trying to share land with other beings, and they end up making a lot of poor decisions, which kind of helps get their society going. And it's very very much a parallel to like Western colonization, just kind of like the expansion to the new world, those kind of ideas.
So, what attracted you to that subject of the serpents or serpenoids? Because it's one of those things that has been very popular lately with reptilians, the reptilian race, a pre-Adamic race of, I guess, first Earth dwellers before humans were created. So, where did the origin come from for that? What influenced you to write about that certain type of being?
Well, I got the inspiration of like the character designs through the original G.I. Joe, the movie, the animated one, where Cobra Commander is exposed to these spores, and throughout the movie, he's slowly turning into a cobra. And there's one moment in it where he's like this weird abomination, like half human, half snake, and it just clicked there. And it's like that's I'm going to create this character. He's one of many characters. There are like, as a child, when I was thinking of this, there were like demons who were like kind of good demons, and they were defending Earth against the evil demons, which I feel like, later on the series of Tenebris might go into something more like that. But yeah, that's kind of like where that originally started. And I don't know, just like the concept of the serpent is very ingrained in like in Christianity. Like Lucifer shows up as the serpent in the Garden of Eden. And something that I've like come to find like even more interesting is just like a lot of the more old religions, like more of like the Druids and like the pagans, they used to worship snakes. Like the serpent was it used to be seen in a very different light than how we now depict it today. It wasn't like this dark, evil creature or anything. It was just one of the many creatures they had worshipped. And I don't know how much you know about the origins of St. Patrick's Day, but like the story is St. Patrick went to Ireland and drove out all the snakes. Killed all the snakes in Ireland, but really, like at the time, like, and the geography, snakes don't really live there like that. And I'm sure it's like the metaphor of driving out the Druids. And so one of the themes of Tenebris is kind of like the dangers of following like a blind faith, seeing like where it can take you to, different points of eradicating other cultures and stuff. And that's all kind of just like, like this big conglomerate of all this metaphor with just how our real world has dealt with religion or other religions.
It's funny as you're giving me the backstory to that. I was thinking on something as soon as you stop right there where, and I know I've had a few more revolutions around the sun than you have, but if I want to go back in time because you mentioned G.I. Joe, you mentioned Cobra Commander, and when that series came out at that time, the other thing that G.I. Joe, the movie that came out, was actually premiere on a Saturday afternoon. Most kids would have been out there doing what they had to do, playing. I did not play outside. I waited for that movie to come on. And when they introduced the character Serpentor, man, that was a game changer. And I think it kind of gave a little more life to the show. But and I think it still holds up now. It's good storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Whole new different dimension for G.I. Joe, the movie. But side tangent on that. But I love what you're doing, man. And for those that haven't met you yet at the conventions, I know you've done a whole lot this year. and you and I will be seeing each other on October 25th on Snarly Yow's Crypto Halloween 3 in
Right.
Ranson, West Virginia at the Civic Center. Uh, we always have fun at these conventions, but you have something with you that is always a great, I like to say, an attraction. People talk about this certain item. What is it that you have there? Because I'm a big fan of that statue you have.
Oh yes. So it's the statue of Sectorus. He's the king of the Serpenoids. The one of the four main perspectives in the Unholy Darkness, and he's kind of like the overarching hero character in the first book, Unholy Darkness. He isn't necessarily starting out as like the hero. Towards like the later half of the book, he does go on this journey, and then like has to try to avenge his clan, and he's going on this great heroic journey, and from there on is when he kind of develops more into the hero type character, and it's he's also just like a really great example, I think, too, of just like the trials and errors of what a leader has to face. Leaders often make decisions that can be really bad for other people, or and that's kind of like one of Sectorus's things in the when you first get to know him, just kind of like he's not really all that great, and he's making all these bad choices, seems very like bigoted almost, and then once he goes out and discovers the world and meets other cultures, realizes how much in the wrong he is, and is basically just trying to reach his redemption. And so, yeah, I have this nice, like 12-inch figure that I got done by a buddy of mine, Ed Callow. And it's quite a hit. A lot of people love it. People have been asking me about it, and I'm, kind of considering, getting like a little smaller line of them, and see where they go. That's kind of how the Ninja Turtles started out. They had a comic book, and well, how do we like push this comic book? Like, well, maybe we can make toys. And so they started making toys out of them. And it's like, well, how do we push the toys? Like, well, we got to make a cartoon now to like help sell the toys. And, it all has to start somewhere. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great detail on that, by the
Thank you.
way. So my hat's off to the person that chiseled it and made it. And my hat's off to you for, the design and for all the work that you put into this book. Which leads me to this, because talk about earlier the conversation we had at the restaurant, that you have your very own experiences. Because I know this show covers a lot of the paranormal, UFOlogy, and the cryptids. And sometimes I have folks approach me, even at work, say, hey, now that I know what you do, let me tell you what happened to me when I was at this age, right? This is what happened to me the other day. Is it not paranormal? And we have great conversations,
Right.
such as you were telling me that you had an experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, in a place that you used to work that perhaps
Right.
was haunted. So what year did this happen? Where were we in your life at that point?
All right, so this would have been between about 2013 through 2015. I was working at a burger whiskey bar in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, downtown Pittsburgh. Winghearts was the burger whiskey bar, named after the head chef, Zach Winghart. And this was located in an area called Market Square, which just like its name, it's kind of like this, squared shaped plaza filled with all these different shops and bars. It's mostly bars, and there's some housing, or I guess apartments up top. But the story is, back in the day, that used to be like heavily filled with like mobster activities, and those apartments and those shops used to be brothels. And I guess that's why now there is, some extra paranormal activity that goes on there. When I worked at Winghearts, I remember some of the employees telling me that, this restaurant's kind of haunted, but, like, don't think too much about it, but just kind of like, oh, sometimes like, when you come to open up, the doors are unlocked or the doors are open. And that was something I did come to find. Just like you'd come and try to open up, and the next day, and you go reach for the door, and you can see it's already like kind of open ajar, and being someone that would like cloak in a lot, it's just like, oh, I know for sure I closed this shut last night. I don't know why it's open. And, things would be kind of like it moved around. And there were several different levels to this restaurant too. And then there was a ground floor and a second floor for the restaurant itself. Then the third floor was like storage. And then there was a fourth floor that had like all this like past storage from, I guess, like other occupants who used to own the property. And that's where I would like take a nap sometimes in between shifts, which like that fourth floor was really creepy though. And just kind of like knowing like some of the extra stuff of the place. Whenever I go to take a nap up there, I'd always like just look around and be like, all right, I don't know who's here. I don't know who's listening, but don't mess with me. I just need a short nap. I'm working a like 15 plus hour like shift or whatever, like like don't bother me. And I never had any like kind of harm like directly to me, but I remember like my first experience there of something out of the ordinary was we had closed up the shop and we were at the upstairs bar, like all the employees were having some drinks as we like would do closing up, and locked up the doors. We're all just like having a good time chatting, and then like we can start hearing like footsteps coming up the stairs, and we all just stop and just like, hey, I thought you said you locked the doors. You're supposed to lock doors. Like, no, I did lock the doors. And we all just like listening, and we hear these footsteps, and we keep hearing them, and they haven't reached the top yet. And it's just like, okay, there's someone just like walking up and down. Like, why aren't they here? And then another friend just like, let me go check. They went over to the doorway and like poked their head, and as soon as they looked through the threshold, the steps stopped. And there's like, guys, there's no one here. And we all just kind of looked at each other. They stepped away, and we heard like a few more of those steps, and just like, all right, let's all finish our drinks real quick. Let's get out of here. This is it for tonight. And I was just kind of like, okay, like I've been hearing that this is a haunted place, and it's like, okay, now I see it. Like, I'm not sure what that was. And there was a point in time where the owners had an investigative team come by, like a paranormal team come by and check it out, and they had discovered that there was like 4 entities that they said that lived within the building. And I'm not sure like the specifics of that. Like, the only thing I know what they said about it is 3 of them are fine with whatever we're doing. One of them isn't as much, and maybe that's the one that moves things around at night. I know I had like an ongoing joke for a little while that one of the ghosts was like a diabetic bear, was what I used to like to say, because there was one day where we came in, one morning we come in to open up, and as soon as they step into the kitchen, because I was a cook, they like our jug of honey had been tipped over off of one of these counters, and it was just like the honey was spread out all over the place. And I remember specifically the night before using that honey and putting it in a completely different spot than where it had been that morning. And so my ongoing joke was like, oh, okay, so we are haunted. It's a bear that really needs that like extra sugar at night. That's it was a really interesting place, and it's just one of the few experiences I've had in my life. I don't know, like I have a cousin who has also had a lot of encounters, and I've always wondered if there was something about like the maybe like the men in the Barrios family that have like a little like something extra, because my dad used to always tell me about all these things, like all these feelings he would have, and like going to visit like Civil War locations, and you can just feel like certain energies there. And even just like the home I had grown up with, like grown up at most of my life, was across the street from a cemetery. And I have like one distinct moment where I'm always questioning what was happening there. And I don't remember how old I was at the time. I had to have been within middle school. and I had like the TV on, like music going on, and like the Ghostbusters song was playing, and so I'm singing along to the Ghostbusters song, like of course of all songs, and then I get to like the verse where the guy says, "I ain't afraid of no ghosts," and I say that, "I ain't afraid of no ghosts," and then all of a sudden the closet door just swings open, and I stop, I stare at that, and I went downstairs and I changed the song because I realized I was a little afraid of ghosts.
But let me go back real quick.
Oh yeah.
At the restaurant, putting the paranormal part aside,
Oh yeah.
when you went there, you saw that the door was unlocked. You're not afraid of ghosts, but you're also not afraid to investigate things. You ever think maybe there was like a break-in or a thief in there of some sorts?
Well, like I think it was because this was like such a common thing. We didn't think too much about it, but like we would like, all right, like come in, go in and just kind of like, all right, let's like look around, just kind of make sure everything's okay. And just like we would just find that like some pans might be out of place or whatever, or or like the honey would have been tipped over. But yeah, but like I guess even though it's a downtown in a city that as any kind of city has it's derelicts and stuff, so like I never really like thought too much about maybe a homeless man had like came in there or did something, but I felt like there would be more of an evidence of like forced entry if that was the case, but there was never any damage to the door or the windows or anything like that.
Fair enough. And then during your time there, you worked these long hours. You were there a lot. Did any of the customers ever ask you anything or say, "Hey, I had an experience here," or thought
No,
something
no.
funny? No.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had a customer say anything to me, and I feel like during business hours things would be more tame. But it was always like the employees who who would usually like say talk about how certain things were like out of place, or it's like, oh, I know for sure I did this with this thing, it shouldn't have been like placed over here, or like this shouldn't have been open the way it was.
And you mentioned something earlier about a family history with paranormal, and it's going to take us to a very interesting part of this conversation,
Oh
because
yeah.
earlier, before we started recording, we talked about like cryptids from other different countries that normally I haven't covered yet,
Mhm.
because I haven't come to anybody that can tell me these stories until I met you. Now, I was bragging earlier that you were talking about the statue that you had of the character in Tenebris. I was telling you about the chupacabra that I have here,
Oh yeah.
because you don't see many of these things at these conventions. A lot of it's Bigfoot heavy or paranormal UFOs, which is all right
Mhm.
and well. This is what the show's all about. In fact, I love all that stuff, but
Oh yeah.
we rarely ever go into cryptids or any type of ghosts or anything paranormal outside of the state. So, my friend, you have a very intriguing story that comes from your side of the family about something that I've just learned from you. So I really appreciate that. So what are we going to be talking about right now?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I wanted to talk about La Llorona, or the crying woman. This is an experience that my mother had when she was living in Escuintla, Guatemala. Now, La Llorona, I feel like is like especially more heavily. I feel like there's like a whole trail that goes down Central America, where there's been like different sightings of La Llorona, and like in Mexico, I feel like it's more popular, but there's so many different stories. I feel like, and the one that I know the most is Cortez, when he came to the New World. He came to New World. He, I guess, married like a woman, established a life. He had a wife back in Spain, and then there came a time where I guess they did their conquering well enough where now other people can come to the New World, and so oh crap, my first wife is about to be coming over to the New World. And he's has like this wife, and like I think it's like 2 children with this woman, and he either it's him himself or he had people drown the children, and maybe her as well, but like the story that I know is like he killed them, and I'm not sure what happened to her. And like some of the other legends I've heard was just that like Cortez is not even a part of it, but it's just this woman who lost her children that I guess went swimming and drowned. But it has to do with drowning, and that's why you always see or usually see La Llorona like near water. And it's like near water is like, but also the part of like the Cortez thing is there are sightings like along like his trail that he like had conquered throughout like Central America, where there's if you follow his trail, there's different sightings of this woman. And I guess it's like something like a banshee in a way, or like I don't exactly know what's like like what to categorize this specific kind of ghost. But usually you would see her as like maybe in like a wedding gown, like usually some kind of like white gown. Her face is usually covered, and you just hear like someone wailing or crying as they're like searching for her children. And so my mother had told me a couple of different times, and I really liked this story because it always gets me thinking. And I want to say she was about 4 years old, so it's pretty young. But I guess at night she would have this caretaker or like a babysitter that like would stay with her overnight. And every night my mom would hear outside her window a woman crying. And something that she would always put like a detail she would always focus on is at the time the roads in Escuintla were like dirt roads. They hadn't had pavement yet or anything. It was just like the original gravel roads that had been there for centuries or whatever. And you would like hear this woman like walking down her street, and she was always curious about it. And she would ask like her babysitter, and it's like, no, don't pay attention to that. Just go to sleep. Don't look outside the window. And I even think she has gone as far as to tell her that like, oh, like, that's just La Llorona, don't pay any attention to her. Don't do that, because then she'll take you, kind of thing. And so naturally, as any kid does, she didn't listen to those warnings. Yeah. And one night was like, okay, my babysitter isn't watching me. I hear this woman. I'm going to go and peek. And so looks outside the window and saw a woman in a white like dress, almost like a wedding dress, had a veil covering her face. And she was just like, walking, oh, mis hijos, crying like my children, just looking around and like just crying, or like really terrible crying. And then she saw, and it put like some kind of feeling into her, like she was scared, like maybe realizing she shouldn't be seeing this woman. And then like with that fear and excitement turning to her babysitter, and it's like, I saw La Llorona. And it really freaked out her babysitter. And then after that night, she basically quit. Like my mom says, after that night, she never saw her babysitter again. So just kind of hightailed it out of there. And then, yeah, she would continue to hear that for some time until like, like shortly after that, like maybe a week or so later, there was more development, and those dirt roads got paved over, with like the regular tar you would have on any street. And ever since then, the woman stopped visiting at night. And it's always been curious about that, of like did like just this extra like development, did that kind of like sour the haunted grounds that she used to follow. And I think like in a different part of town there was like a fountain where people would have sightings of La Llorona just like sitting at the fountain, up until when that fountain was removed, and then again those sightings stopped as well.
Wow, so it seems that maybe the source of her power that gives her the ability to show herself to people is it's water based of some sorts.
Yeah, and I guess it's because like her children were drowned, and so it's just kind of lingering around water looking for them. I know in certain tales it's like if a child sees her, then she will take you and then drown you. And that didn't happen with my mom, so maybe it was that maybe the ghost didn't realize that she had been seen, or maybe because she was indoors, she was protected.
Wow, and I'm gonna say this because I might add a little humor to this, but I'm not trying to do it in a disrespectful way.
Oh, that's cool.
because we do have listeners in Mexico that listen, they're fans and follow the show. And I'm going to suggest this: if someone is listening in that certain province or town where La Llorona has been sighted for all these years, just because there's no lakes there or no rivers or a pond, if you do so happen to build a pool in your backyard or a hot tub of some sorts, I think you need to be watching out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because
And
because we know what happened in Poltergeist too.
oh yeah, you can't trust water, you know.
No.
What was it like? I guess like you're saying, not. I guess speaking of bringing a little lightness to it, or a little like comedic value. Or there's a very fun movie that came out not too long ago. Well, I guess there's a couple, but the one it came out in 2019 called The Curse of La Llorona. And I really enjoyed that movie. It's definitely not a serious horror movie. It does have, and it's not campy, but there are just certain parts that are, are kind of like funny. But I that's, definitely like a movie. I suggest check it out. It's a good way to get some of the lore, and it's pretty fun too. And there's just like a really great scene where the Catholic priest who wasn't going to interfere then finally decides, okay, I'm here. And it's like, I'm so ready to see like this priest like basically have like a fight with La Llorona, and it's a lot of fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun because I always like watching those types of movies, especially ones like I said is something obscure, whether it's a cryptid or a phantom of some sorts, because it kind of adds a little more dimension to what it is that we do. And now I'm gonna go back to your book real quick.
All right.
And I know you're working on a part on a continuation of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you mentioned it earlier. Do you have a working title for it?
Yes. So Tenebris, book 2, the official title will be The Unholy Quest. Yes, and this one is going to be more adventure based. It's a direct sequel from the first one, which does have kind of a not kind of, I guess, has a pretty big cliffhangery ending there, and so like we pick up directly from there as the characters Sectorus, his brother Solarius, and a young warrior from a completely different culture of beings, Wakia. They form together and they travel across the world of Geom to recruit more helpers, develop a war party to basically, take back their land. And I guess that's the Unholy Quest. Very, very excited with it. It's been taking a lot of life. And especially the character Wakia, she's only introduced like in the last chapter of the first book, Unholy Darkness, and I'm really liking. She's going to be one of the main perspectives that we follow in Unholy Quest, and just getting a feel of like her culture, which is like very heavily inspired by the indigenous tribes of the Great Plains. So like she has a little extra to the characters, and kind of getting to see the world in the eyes of this so I refer to her as a young warrior, but specifically in her tribe, the only the males are trained to be warriors, and the women are specifically crafters, and they stay away from there. They're like banished from fighting. But Wakia has always had a warrior's heart and has been secretly learning the ways of the warrior, and has basically have voluntarily shunned herself from her tribe to go on this quest to get the pilgrimage of the warrior. And she's a great character, and I'm really excited for other for the fans to get to know her more.
Awesome, because I was going to ask you about introducing new characters, and of course you had the main ones. Now, with the new book, I guess talking about the first book as well, in the series, how do you come up with the characters' names? Because they sound pretty awesome.
Thank you. So I don't know. you can say like channeling something beyond myself, maybe. I know my mentor for a long time has always like kind of like, been poking at the idea of like, this story, you're calling it fantasy, but maybe this is like memories of a past life, or you're channeling something from a different dimension. Because I've been working on a lot of the pieces of Tenebris as far as my memory can go back. And, like I said, I was in kindergarten when I saw the G.I. Joe movie and started working on those characters. I was drawing the Eye of Thandrua symbol at recess and throughout like many different papers of homework. So it's like I don't know where like some of those came from, but at least like Solarius, who is Sectorus's brother, he is the cobra with the keenest sight. That name, the way how I came up with it, I was driving one day and I saw a license plate, like a vanity plate, that had the name or that was written Solario on there. And I liked that. I was just like, that sounds like a cool name. I'm going to use that. And originally, that was Sectorus's name. He was Solario. When I first decided to write the name down for the King Cobra, was what the original name was. I was like, okay, that name sounds cool. Solario sounds kind of snakish. I'm using that. And in the original version of Tenebris that I wrote, which was the Unholy Wars at that time, which now that'll be book 3, hint, hint. But in that original version, there's Solario, the King Cobra, and he meets a very different character that I called Sectorus. And the way I came up with that name, with a lot of the names, was just kind of like, all right, I have a new character. I need its name. I close my eyes, and it's just like, I am calling it Sectorus. It's like, boom, that's what's going to be the name. But when I rewrote the original story and turned it into the Unholy Darkness, the character of Sectorus was cut out completely, but I really liked that name a lot. It was a good, strong name. And so I just kind of shifted it. I then made Solario into Sectorus, and then made Hit, and then still using that other name and making him into his brother. But I changed it to Solarius because it's kind of inspired by the names of the angels. Like all the angels have a similar sounding name. They all end with an EL. Samuel, Uriel, Gabriel, Michael. The only one that doesn't have that kind of name is Lucifer. And that's why in my version of Genesis, in Unholy Darkness, the original name of Lucifer is written as Luzbel to kind of be in the theme with the other angels. And then Lucifer is the name that he dons himself after being banished. And so the 4 Cobras kind of follow that route: Sectorus, Solarius, Orpheus, and Phineas. And then with the character Wakia, that was actually originally her name was Barrage, and she was a he, but I thought had a more compelling story with making her female and having this kind of going against the old traditions of her tribe. And when I changed the name to Wakia, at the time I was working with Starbucks, and there is a customer that came in of Native American descent, and their name was Wakia, and I loved that name. As soon as they said their name Wakia, and I wrote it down, I was just like, I love your name. I'm going to take your name. And I'm sure had no idea what I meant by that. It was I'm taking your name. And then I went, into my Google Docs and, find Barrage and then just replace with the name Wakia. It's all right, this is now your new name. And it's cool, inspired by a Native American person and using it for this character that has these Native American qualities.
That's very interesting because you never know where in life or where you're going to be at that certain moment where inspiration will strike. I mean,
yeah.
The evidence is right here with Tenebris, my friend.
Yeah, there's a reason why I used to always keep a tiny little notebook wedged into my back pocket. Back before, we had these super giant phones that only fit in the back pocket.
Oh, yeah, and that it's funny because at work, and I do work. Just let my boss know if she's listening. When
Work hard.
yeah, I do for sure. Where sometimes it's almost like this lightning strikes, and you have to write something down. Because if you don't write it down, you're gonna forget it. You're kind of cheating yourself out of the creative process if you don't.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a. I remember there was a good like 2 years where I was just completely, well, for the most part, I guess, unemployed, and it was right after high school, and I was when I was the most creative. I was, doing a lot of my poetry at the time. Doing some fiction writing, but yeah, a lot of poetry, a lot of music, and just always constantly coming up with ideas, constantly keeping that back pocket notebook there, ready. And then once I started working with Starbucks specifically, because I was with them for 13 years altogether, and because before then I was doing freelance video work, which has the leniency of me like, oh, I have an idea, I can write this down. But with at the service industry, you're kind of like stuck, in one specific position, constantly helping people, and you cannot step away. And I just remember all these different ideas and concepts would just be like, firing in all my synapses, and I could just feel myself dying inside as like, oh, there's this new idea. Oh, there's this other thing. I need to write this down. I need to write that down, but I can't do that. And then it will just kind of like, and it'll just disappear. And so it's been a very nice thing now where I'm a full-time author now. I took a sabbatical from Starbucks last year, March 2023, and came back March 2024, and things were going so well doing this author thing that I just kind of kept it going. And now that I'm writing every day, literally like I'm working every day as a creative, and like I'm constantly having all these new thoughts, new ideas, and it just feels so great to be able to, I'm sitting around kind of doing nothing, then suddenly it's just like I need to go to my desk, I need to write, and then go and start writing for like another hour or two. And even though I've already done my set, hours that I always do in the morning, but always going back to add more to it.
I took some notebooks from my home, my studio, took it to work because I don't want to use work supplies to write stuff down and get accused of things. But anyways, so my friend, for the listeners of Let's Find Out that want to know more about what it is that you do, the events you'll be a vendor at, and also not only about Tenebris, but the continuation of that story. Where can they find out all about what it is that you do?
So that's the link tree is linktr.ee/JA_Barrios. And then that will hook you up to all my social medias, all the different ways to find Tenebris, Unholy Darkness, and my collection of short horror stories, Ravings of an Unsettled Mind. Soon to BD, I will have a full official website, which I already have the domain name, and that's barrios.books, which is also how you can find me on like Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, that's a great way to find me. And yeah, float around on all kinds of events. I'm always doing something. Yeah, really looking forward to like Cryptid Halloween in October. I know before then I'm doing Fright Reads Book Festival at the end of September. It's in Milledgeville, Maryland. And I think like the week right before Crypto Halloween, I'm in Richmond doing GalaxyCon's Nightmare Weekend, which if you last year was its first year, so like it's definitely like a good one to check out now with year two. So I had a lot of fun last year. It was really cool.
Awesome. And I'll tell you this before we go. You inspired me to get my own Linktree. Because when I was on yours, like it says try Linktree, it's free. I said, all right, I'll try it. And then I tried it, and it's so much easier just to send out that Linktree than send out 10 things.
Oh yeah,
how to find me. So no, I appreciate you
Linktree
discover that. Yeah,
Linktree is awesome. So I give the credit to my graphics guy, Ed Gario, who He set it up for me. It was just like once I was like starting out, like last year, starting to do all my promotional stuff. He was doing the graphics for my business card and like for my bookmarks, and then it was just like, okay, also like here, here's the Linktree. I like set you up with a login. And it's like, oh, okay, I have no idea what this thing is. And then looking at it, it's like, oh, it's what I called a diet website. It's just like, it's straight to the point. Here's a list of all the links that you want people to follow, and like, no clutter, no mess. And I guess saying that, one of the reasons why I'm looking to doing like a full website is that now I have multiple books coming out. There is getting like more and more links there, and like, I kind of want to have something a little more official, but I'll still be using my Linktree. Like I'll have an extra link there for the website. It's a really great source.
With that, if I don't see you in the next few weeks, I'll definitely see you on October 26th, my friend.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good time.
I'm looking forward to you, my friend. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Please check us out on all our social media pages, YouTube, Rumble, and BitChute. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, Let's Find Out is now on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Catch the show on Saturdays at 2 a.m. For more information, please visit KGRADB.com. That's KGRADB.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Let's find out with Diego, the power of Diego Mania. All content for Let's Find Out is property of CoHostDiego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.